Lady Hoffman, who is filling the space vacated by the resignation of Dennis Friesel for District 5. Thanks. Let's show him how we do this and give him a good first meeting. Right? I guess next business in order is the approval of the August 22nd board meeting minutes.
I just have one real minor change. I think it was when we talked about the plaque for Madden. I didn't actually have the design. I just described it.
Okay.
Other than that, they look fine.
Did you have a picture?
No.
Oh, I thought you did. I guess I got one.
It was, yeah, Sue pulled it up on the
Oh,
phone.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I have one deletion minor of 7 words in, let's see, page 3. It's item 2. The last 7 words were an opinion, and those are not allowed in the minutes. You got that, James?
Page 3, number 2.
Correct. Any other additions, corrections, deletions?
I'll move we approve the August meeting minutes with those changes.
A second. It has been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Lance, the treasurer's report.
Okay. Yeah, basically included in your board packet is, the treasury's report again for this month. So I think, overall we've had a pretty good season out on Lake Lemon. As you can see, I mean, we still, had quite a few boats and stuff come into the lakes during the month of August. About $17,733 in watercraft permits and related $2,858 in the launch fees. Park Commission continued to remain pretty strong. We finally got a summer weather in there, so that kind of boosted that up a little bit as well. And so overall, we're showing, total income of about $53,677. Expense-wise, nothing really out of the ordinary there. We're still in the full bore of summer, so a lot of activity going on to the lake. So really salary and expenses remain the same throughout. Obviously, gatehouse, everything, is full staff, dredging activities and such are kind of going on there. We did purchase a little bit more gas and diesel, during the month of August. Obviously, running the dredging equipment, we do go through that pretty quickly. And then, again, because of the crowds that we had at the beach, I think we had to flush the portalets and all that a little bit more often than not. So that it was a little bit of an increase this month. We also, on the repairs and maintenance, showed a bill of about $5,580. That was actually the plumbing bill that came in for initially the repairs that we made to the bathhouse previously. So we finally got the bill in and got that paid. And then obviously we had a water treatment bill for the month as well, came in for the weed treatment that we received during the month of August. Balance sheet wise, we're doing pretty well. Currently our checking account, we currently have $367,000 involved. We're maintaining about $116,000 in the form of CDs, and our community maintenance funds is holding strong at $76,000. Obviously, we didn't purchase any other assets during the month, and currently we really don't have any debt, so we're doing well there. So with that, open up to any specific questions in terms of the financials for the month. And if no questions, if I could get a motion for approval.
I move.
Second.
It is, oh, go ahead.
Yeah, been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, basically also included in the package for you is we do have the report of claims. Basically for the month, they total approximately $34,969. Is there any specific questions on the claims being reported for the month? And if no questions, if I could have a motion for approval.
I'll make that motion to approve the claims for the month of September.
I'll second that.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, and I believe next on the agenda is basically this is our official quote-unquote public hearing on the budget. As you know, basically at this time, the budget has technically been published, so no further changes, could be made. We've had previous hearings going through the course of the summer. What I'd basically like to do, first of all, is just maybe open it up real quickly to see if there's any general questions that anybody would have, after the last meeting. And if not, I could kind of go through some specific sections on some of the changes. But overall, for 2016 proposed, we are basically going to reflect revenues of approximately $677,000. A big chunk of that came in, which was one of the changes from this past month, is that we did basically push the loan proceeds forward from 2015 to 2016. So we have that included in the budget at $200,000. Other real key things that we're looking at, again, we did increase watercraft permits, launch fees and such during the course of 2016, again, based on historical trends, but nothing too major there. And then more importantly, I think basically we are projecting to keep the tax levy the same, estimating property taxes for Monroe County at $185,000 and Brown County at $65,000. Outside of that, most of it's really just kind of been carried over. The other real just minor changes, park admissions. After multiple years of not really having any changes in fees, we did basically increase the park admission to about $7 per car, which is also in correspondence to what the state does on all the state parks as well. So we just kind of matched that. Any questions at all on revenue side? Okay. Real quickly on salaries and benefits, again, as we discussed last meeting, a couple major changes. Basically on the district manager, we did include basically the salary increased that to $50,450. Part of the reason is we're right on the edge. There is some legislation going through right now relating to overtime and salaried employees. And so basically to kind of keep above that threshold, we bumped it to the minimum. We're kind of in a catch-22 there, being a seasonal business. Obviously summer months, it's going to be a lot more hectic than, in the winter months. The other major change is basically in relation to the lake biologist. We are looking at making that essentially a full-time position. So you basically notice that in line 6110, that we kind of zeroed that out and basically created an operations supervisor position of 6001 to more accurately reflect really the job and such that's being done by that position. Outside of that, really the other payroll is kind of arbitrary, but we did just budget in a 3% increase basically into a lot of the payroll functions such as gate attendance. We do have some season ones there, and so we did project that at $11 per hour. And then basically the dredger, we're looking at just a cost of living increase there, but keeping all the hours and stuff the same for all those positions. So overall, as you can imagine, the biggest chunk of our budget salaries, and that came in about $209,562. Any questions?
Lance, on gate attendance, I think maybe it's just a typo, but that 2016 number for 21,000 probably maybe should be 22,000 if you multiply it out.
Yeah, that's correct. I think we did have that number that way.
Lance, I have a question. The change in salary for the lake manager, what percent increase does that represent in terms of his current salary?
About 4%. Yeah. Yeah, because he's about 50, well over 50 right now. Okay, any other questions on salary or payroll? Yeah, we'll make note of the change to the hours. Okay. Basically, the other really looking at office supplies and operating supplies, not a whole lot of changes there, just really kind of carrying it forward. Launch permits, obviously we have more boats on the lake, we need more permits, so we did bump that up a little bit. Basically as we discussed last meeting, we're kind of flip-flopping gas and diesel in terms of the fuel expense, because if we do end up getting a smaller barge, it's probably going to be gas powered and not diesel powered. And we did bump up building the grounds a little bit, try to get a little bit of repair work and stuff done, to the park area as well. Just a couple other real minor changes. We are looking at the possibility of getting uniforms, some sort of maybe golf shirt or something like that for the staff, get a little bit more professional looking. And then we are bumping up the nautical markers, basically about 1,500. We had some that are starting to show their age a little bit, and I don't think the reflective tape on them works anymore. So we are going to try to replace some of those in 2016 as well. So overall, budget-wise, pretty close to what we were this year. It's about $65,100 in total expense there. Any other questions on that? Professional service, I think the main thing there is, we are budgeting a little bit of an increase in the mowing. We've been in conversation that actually comes up for RFP next year. And so we've already been kind of told that they'll probably be looking for an increase there. So we kind of budgeted for it accordingly. And then we don't have as much consulting needs next year, so we bumped that down. But overall, staying pretty much the same there. Communications, nothing too exciting, basically just carrying that forward in terms of phones and things of that nature, no major changes. Insurance, I think we're anticipating it to be pretty flat for 2016, so that's remaining the same at $43,000. And then overall, utility-wise, we're projecting that to be very similar. We just put a little bit more in there because, again, the traffic that we've had in the park keeps increasing, so we are having to pump the tanks a little bit more, so we did budget a little bit more in that regards. So in regards to kind of some of the service charges on that page, any other general questions on that? Repairs and maintenance, basically just doing a lot of carry forward there. But really a couple of the key items and key differences is in line 6440 sluice gate. We are going to be due for the inspection next year. We have to do that, every 3 or 4 years? And
I think we kind of do it a little more than we
need to,
yeah.
But better safe than sorry. And then actually we're up for a dam inspection next year too. We do that every other year as required, so that's coming up in 2016. Based on the last report, we do have some, spillway repairs, just some minor things, concrete work that needs to be done down there. Problem is, we've never been able to get to it because it's been kind of raining recently. But we are going to kind of carry that forward in the budget this next year. And then obviously, the debt service has been pitched forward from 2016 to 2016 as well. So overall, any questions really on repairs or any other service charges? And last page, really the big one there and the big change is again we pushed all the small barge related items forward from 2015 to 2016. So you see the barge, the push boat, and the excavator. That was all related to the smaller barge operation. And the only other thing that we have and that we're anticipating capital improvement wise is, the pontoon boat motor is kind of on its last leg, so we are putting a little bit in the budget for that. But outside of that, overall, expenditure wise, we're looking at about $720,672 total. As reflected in the budget, from a cash flow standpoint, it does, show a deficit of about $43,000. Obviously, if we do go to that, we get into our cash reserve, but as mentioned, historically, we've been always able to come in substantially under the budget. So, would be open to any questions at this time. Okay, so with that, I guess we have had the the public hearing on the budget.
All right. Next item is guest speaker. Adam?
I'd like to introduce Josh Brosmer from IDEM. He works with the 319 grant program out of Indianapolis. We invited him down to kind of give us a little bit of the update and look how we can use the grants and some potential projects in the watershed, if you will.
Thanks, Adam, and thanks for inviting me here tonight. I'm a watershed specialist. I cover southwestern Indiana. My job has two major parts. The first part is working with concerned citizens that want to do something about their water quality concerns in their local watershed, and then form into groups to address some of those issues. The second part, the main reason that I'm here, is dealing directly with 319 grants. 319 grant program. Our 319 program provides cost share funding to watershed groups to do best management practices to help address some of the identified watershed problems. And one of the big requirements that we have is the watershed has to have an approved watershed management plan on file before we can award any funds for installing best management practices. And luckily for you guys, there is a watershed management plan for the Bean Blossom watershed covering this area. It is a little bit older plan, but currently and likely at least through next year, we're still funding plans on the checklist that it was approved by. The second major criteria we have for funding is when we award grants, we do not award the money to be spent in the entire watershed. It has to be narrowed down to a smaller area that the local residents have decided is the greatest need, either because it's the worst problem or it's the best area in need of protection. So that's all written into the watershed management plan, that's covered. And as part of the initial discussion with Adam and Mike about the Lake Lemon watershed, I checked and Lake Lemon is actually designated a critical area. So that allows you to focus funding if you decide to pursue a grant directly into this watershed. I could bore you all night with specific details and really take this a number of different ways. So I'm going to give a little bit more general information about what kind of projects we do, and then I'll open it up for questions. To that end, I didn't print nearly enough copies, but I have some examples of the type of agricultural practices that we fund through the 319 program. And the codes on the left, the number codes on the left refer to the NRCS Field Office Technical Guide. So you can, if you want to know more information about what each of the practices entails, you can look that up online. Just Google FOTG, go to Indiana, and then look up the number. But basically, the practices are required to be installed to NRCS specs. So, as I said, this is the agricultural BMPs list. There are several other projects that are common that fall under these terms that are not immediately recognizable, such as precision ag, upgrades which fall under nutrient management. There's I think it's listed as exclusion fencing, which is basically removing livestock from stream access, which also includes installing a water source for the cattle once they're removed from the stream. But basically, that'll give you a general idea of the agricultural-based best management practices we can fund. We also fund urban practices. There are not yet standards cut out by NRCS for urban practices, but typically we're looking at things like rain gardens, green roofs. Used to do a lot of rain barrels, but we've kind of gotten away from that. Pretty much any acknowledged urban practice, pervious pavers, stuff like that, they are not blanket approval like that agricultural list there is. They have to be approved individually. I didn't check the plan carefully enough to see if urban best management practices were listed. I'm not sure that it is recent enough that it would have been required for that detail, but most likely urban practices would still be funded in some fashion if you decide to apply for a grant. As for the application process, the sponsorship is required to be either city, county, or state government, or university, or 501(c)(3). And Adam sent me a very good question about whether you guys qualify as county government, and I'm still trying to track down the answer to that. So that answer will have to come later. Because I've talked to 3 people and nobody knows yet. So regardless of whether you can sponsor a 319 grant yourselves or you need to partner with somebody, a big part of the program is forming partnerships. So even if you can sponsor it yourself, we want to see you working with Brown County SWCD, Monroe County SWCD, concerned citizens, county surveyors, county health departments, most likely IU and landowners. Anybody you can think of that has a stake in the watershed or concern about the watershed. Beyond that, the process is kind of a complicated one, and it changes slightly every year, so I can't give you exact details on what the requirements are going to be for next year. Can tell you that beginning in about May, we will announce the solicitation information for next year. You will at that time have about 30 days, so early June, to submit a notice of intent if you decide to apply, which is about 8 questions that you'll have to answer about the project and project area and what you intend to do. Once that's submitted, you will have until early September if you decide to submit an application to fill out the application itself. And the application's roughly 8 pages or so. Part of it is background information about the water quality problems. Part of it is what you actually plan to do. And the final major part is the budget and how you intend to spend the funds. And I'm available to help every step of the way in writing the application. Frankly, that's what I've spent my time doing the last 2 months with other groups, is helping provide suggestions, reviewing their applications, giving them feedback. So if you do decide to go forward with something like that, I'm a resource for your use. Make sure you take advantage of it. Because basically, the application seems pretty straightforward, but there's a lot of little tips and tricks that first-time applicants can use like this. And with that, I'll open it up to questions.
What kind of funding are we talking about? I mean, like, I know we've talked about a retention pond that Possum tried, and so do we tell you how much, do we figure out how much it would cost, and that's how much we ask for? Is that how this works?
Yeah,
Okay.
there are some requirements. For an implementation grant, which is what you would be applying for, half of the funding has to be spent on actual on-the-ground practices.
Okay.
And along with the requirements for cost share money, we pay 75% of any cost share project, up to 75%. So whoever is doing the project has to provide 25% match. For the grant overall, we have to have 40% match, so there has to be other ways to make up that discrepancy. Beyond that, retention ponds are not what we do. It's all water quality related in that it has to be directly on the approved list.
Yeah, I misspoke. It's not really a retention pond.
So
yeah.
perhaps,
Yeah.
or we're,
Water sediment and control basin.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I'm talking about.
638.
Gotcha. Although we are going away from those, but yes, that's something we do still currently do.
Okay.
Or I shouldn't say we do, we're going away from it. NRCS is trying to step away from that one a little bit.
Ms. Warren, Josh, I mean, looking at Lake Lemon, I don't know how familiar you are with the Bean Blossom watershed. I mean, we've got a large, very large watershed that feeds into the lake.
Mm-hmm.
How would you best assess even where to begin on something like that?
Well, the first step is to review the current watershed management plan. And as I said, it's dated. It was approved under the 2003 checklist. We're currently on the 2009 checklist for all new plans. off the top of my head, I want to say it was approved in 2007, 2008. One round of implementation was done starting in 2010, starting in 2009, going to 2012. So basically, you would need to look at the watershed management plan, the final report from the first round of implementation, and then look at what the needs are that you guys see, that you're aware of, and kind of mesh those together and formulate a plan. I can tell you that the good thing about the Bean Blossom plan is that it gives you a lot of options. Bad thing is it doesn't narrow it down much, so you do have a lot of options to sort through. So, but I can help you go through that. It's been a while since I've read either the final report or the plan, so I'm not real familiar with it off the top of my head. But I did check to make sure Lake Lemon is a critical area, so that means you can focus directly. There are other critical areas that apply to this general area within the greater Bean Blossom watershed. And actually, one of the things that is coming down from EPA is we're requiring groups to be a lot more focused than we used to be. So having a focus just on the Lake Lemon part of it is kind of going to mesh with that pretty well. So that narrows you down a little bit, and it'd be up to the local knowledge of people who spend time in this part of the watershed, kind of narrow it down further, consider what the greatest needs are, what the likely projects would be, but I can kind of help with that as well when that time comes.
So if you're doing work up in the watershed on property not owned by the Conservancy District, does the property owner have to agree to it?
Yes, the property owner has to agree to it and has to provide the 25% match.
The property owner does?
Yes. Now that match can be in the form of labor. It does not have to be monetary. So if the landowner installs the practice themselves, they can count their time and effort and any equipment they use as the match.
And is a conservation easement then required to maintain the facility?
No, it's not a conservation easement. Most of our practices, when the landowner fills out the application, it's a 5-year maintenance term they agree to. Bigger practices that include buildings like mortality buildings for animal feeding operations require a 10-year agreement. Cover crops require just a 1-year agreement. But that's in the application itself when the landowner applies.
I'm sorry, Josh, is there an incentive for these people to come up with the 25% through tax incentives or something like that?
Generally not, but you typically work with people that really wanted to do something to begin with, and the 75% is the incentive.
Okay.
Yes.
Can we apply for more than one grant?
You can, but it's generally not advised. Usually, the sponsors that have applied for more than one grant at the same time in the same grant cycle have not fared very well. That's not to say that you couldn't do it and write the 2 best applications and get both of them awarded, but it's not very likely.
So you were just mentioning how if it's on private land and the landowner helps. So if there was a landowner at the lakes who wanted one of the grants, is that separate from the lake grant? 'Cause
No.
it's not. It's the area?
Yeah, the sponsor, there would be one sponsor, and then it would be the sponsor's job to seek out landowners that want practices in addition to whatever is done on actual lake property. And to that end, we do allow funding to hire a person to administrate the grant to seek landowners for cost share programs and to do an education outreach program.
But what about if the project is on the landowner's land? but it benefits the lake, because that still counts.
Oh, yeah.
That still counts as the lake.
Yeah.
We've got some issues on some private people's land, and me being one of them, where there needs to be some stuff under the house, the lake, but.
Yeah, applications for the general area, but the funds are targeted for wherever the need is and the interest is.
Could it be, sorry, that's not a question.
That's okay.
Could it be that, like, one of the problems we have, and there's two in my area, is creeks that rush into the lake and carry a large amount of sediment. And so, there's too many of these creeks, and we can't, the lake, I've been told, can't really afford to do it. So a couple of my neighbors have talked about us doing it myself, and there's two on two separate properties I own. So those would be like some little projects, like when I talked to somebody on the board about it, they said, there's too many, we can't do all these little projects, but you can do it yourself. So if we say we had like 8 little creeks around the lake that needed like a weir? Weir. Like a weir. Would that count as one?
Each landowner would submit a separate application to the sponsor, but it would all fall into the overall grant. Typically, when our grants are awarded, you're talking in the neighborhood of $150,000 to $200,000 of cost share funds. So that's typically made up of a lot of little projects.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, very rarely are large chunks spent on single projects.
Okay.
Could you send me the final results and reports of the Bean Blossom Watershed Steering Committee? I'm not sure we have those.
I think I did.
Yeah, all right.
I'll double check and make sure I actually attached it.
All right.
And if you want any additional information, just let me know.
Any other questions?
What are some of the other categories that people fall in? Mild, serious, for example, and then what it defines critical?
The critical is defined by the steering committee that's writing the watershed management plan. So it's whatever they interpret the problem is. So that work's been done for you, which is good news. Bad news is that's been done for you. So you can work within what they did, but you cannot change what they did unless you apply for a grant to revise or rewrite, which may be an option because we may be going toward requiring newer plans in the future, but likely not next year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions?
How did they determine this was a critical area?
I wasn't involved back when the first plan was written, but I can tell you that a group of stakeholders got together and hashed it out. I really only know one of the original members of that group, which is Martha Miller at the Monroe County SWCD. Beyond that, I really don't have any insight into it.
I doubt that it's gotten better.
Yes.
Maybe I missed part. But for example, the Bean Blossom Creek shoreline erosion. Shoreline erosion is part of this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Bean Blossom Creek, that is CBU property. Would that fall under 75%?
CBU property.
City of Bloomington.
Yeah, I mean.
Okay, so CBU would kick in 25%.
They could choose to, yes.
Well, who else? The lake?
Whoever's doing the project.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay, so it's the lake.
It's project based.
Because we have a large amount of Bean Blossom Creek that just erodes every rain we get and trees flush in, and no one has ever done anything in the East End since the inception of the LLC.
Now, there are limits to what we can do. We cannot use these grant funds to remove trees or log jams
Right.
from the stream. We can do certain practices in stream, but it's generally preferred not to, because typically if you do one spot, you create a problem somewhere else. We like to work on the land around it. Examples of installing buffers, getting livestock fenced out of the stream, cover crops, areas where there's row cropping that farms right up to the stream bank, getting buffers installed there. Stuff like that is the preferred method. We will do some in-stream work, but it's generally not the preferred option. And typically, the local NRCS person will advise best ways to target specific problems.
Okay, back to the stream coming in. How about what is called, or what I call, a natural sediment trap or sediment basin? I mean, Mother Nature has taken the lake and it's filled in, and it's stopped there for a reason. So in that in-stream, would those projects be to dig new? No?
No. Our project is primarily looking at reducing what's coming
in.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure.
You said that we would be notified, a notification would go out in May.
Yeah, roughly.
How would we be notified? Will it go to the manager's office, or are we on a list to be notified?
Basically, I will keep in touch with you between now and then. If it's something you definitely want to pursue, and you definitely don't have to decide that anytime soon, but I would encourage you to keep in touch with me. Let me know what you're thinking, and then when that time approaches, I will notify whoever in the group here wants to be notified that the information is out.
So we need to let you know that we want to be notified.
Yeah, basically, keep me in the loop on what you're thinking, and we will start the process. Between now and then, if it's something you think you definitely want to pursue, I encourage you to start going out seeking partnerships, making contact with people. To that end, I can tell you I had a contact just this week concerning Little Fox Lake, which is nearby here, and they were having an E. coli problem. So there's potential partnerships there with landowners that are possibly interested in doing something around their lake.
Very well. Thank you for the information, and as I told you before the meeting, you certainly are welcome to excuse yourself if you have better places to be, but we do appreciate your time.
Thanks again for having me, and I'll just end and leave by saying that anytime that you'd like me to come down and talk to the whole group, part of the group, or anything, anytime you need information, don't hesitate to contact me. That's what I'm there for.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is the manager's report. Adam, I'll ask you to introduce our special guest. I should have done it earlier, but since he's close to you, I would appreciate that. Sorry.
Yeah, John Langley with the City of Bloomington.
I'm special guest.
There's
I gotta start coming more often.
We're glad you're here.
Thank you.
All right, first on the manager's report, we have the termination of the contract. Things coming out. But we had the attorney write up the termination agreement. It has been signed by McCullough. I think the board has had a chance to review it. We sent it out a couple days ago, and I will go ahead and pass this on down. I'm not sure if we need a motion. I think we agreed last time that we were gonna go through the termination and get the contract. So that just needs to be signed by the chair.
Probably wouldn't hurt to have a motion.
I think we might want to do that just to be
said.
all right. Would anyone care to make that motion?
I move that we accept the termination agreement as presented.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the termination of the agreement with Mr. McCullough. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
All right, and for an update on the small barge operation, People I was hoping to talk to with Purdue really didn't come to fruition. They're kind of focused more on industrial practice in the building. But I have gotten in touch with a company called Industrial Environmental out of Rockport. It's one of the people I've talked to initially when we were bidding out. Unfortunately, they said they were so busy at the time, they really didn't have a chance to put in a bid. But he said he'd be more than happy to work with us on coming up with a design. And he has barge builders, and he said he will put us in touch with us. So this next month, I'll be working with him, and we'll be coming up with an agreement to approve at the next meeting. But we'll be moving forward, and he says that he can do it, and the people that he works with can do it. And I'm more than happy that way we can get the plans solidified, get blueprints, and then we can use what we get from them to go ahead and bid out for the barge build. The other thing I've been looking at is I know historically we've been just kind of considering everything one big operation, so we've had to go through the bidding process, that the barge, excavator, everything's been one piece of equipment. I'm not sure that that's the case. I think the excavator is going to be used for much more than just the barge. We can use it for the disposal site prep, sediment. We can use it for little projects in the park. It just so happens that the barge complements this piece of equipment. Having said that, we can up to $75,000 just find quotes for excavators, and we could actually purchase an excavator under $75,000 if we have multiple quotes. I think that would help out from tying up these excavators for 30 to 60 days with these companies. I will have to talk to the attorney a little bit more, but I don't think it's one piece of equipment. I think we have an excavator that'll be utilized, and then we have a barge that can complement it, that we can put it on. So I will talk with her, and I think that may help with the process of purchasing the excavator. It's coming up into the fall and winter time, which is generally when equipment is going up for sale. So I think we'll be able to find quite a bit of equipment out there. And we will be looking at that as I move forward with the industrial environmental folks. Once we talk with them and decide what size excavator we're going to use, I think we generally pretty much know what size excavator we're going to get. But we will be working with them. So I hope that'll help streamline the process and result in us actually being able to get an excavator instead of only have one bid coming back. Plus, I think we'll be able to save quite a bit of money if we can actually shop around that way and just get some quotes. So we'll be moving forward with them. We have a meeting, call planned for Friday. We'll talk about it, and we're going to decide if he's going to do it or if he'll put us with the barge builders. And I will keep everybody updated with that. But he said he will definitely help us come up with the plans. We'll have to see what the cost is going to be. We just started the initial discussions with him. So I'm sure there'll be some type of design fee, but he didn't seem to think it would be too much money, if maybe a couple $1,000s, if that, to help us come up with a design if we bid it out ourselves. Other options that we can look at, I know we've talked before about having one person kind of oversee the build for a percentage of the barge. I was talked about Dick Payne before, so that is an option. But if we have the design, I think we could bid it out ourselves, and that'll save us quite a bit of money by separating the two pieces of equipment. So we are moving forward, and they're going to help out. So we're not back to step zero. So I don't know if there's any questions on that or yeah.
Okay, so your plan is to have a consultant design or engineer a barge based on the measurements and stuff that we had and have been working with, and then you're going to send out an RFP for that design? That design?
We will utilize them to come up with the design. So we'll receive the completed design and blueprints from them.
So you're going to pay for that?
Yeah, just pay for them to come up with the design, and then we'll bid out the.
And that's a marine engineer or buoyancy engineer?
Yeah. They have a big operation. They do hydraulic dredging, mechanical dredging. They own quite a few barges, and he works with a few different barge building companies. So it seems pretty promising to me as far as working with them.
You're meeting with them Friday?
We're having a phone call Friday, yes. I talked to him last week, and that's when he said he'd be interested, and he's getting a hold of me at the end of the week, and we can kind of finalize some more of the details. So we are moving forward. As far as, other than that, I have not been able to find, it's hard to find people to design a barge and build a barge. There's just not too many of them out there, but I think we'll be able to move with this. And
well, I have another one for you that in the public comment we'll go over.
Okay, that's good. There's some questions in the back. Ben, I know you.
Industrial Environmental.
Yeah, another question about the excavator. You're talking about just going to buy an excavator. Is there any considerations when you buy that, far as the amount of reach and the amount of weight that it can have for this barge?
Yes, and we'll have to work with them as we're going through the designs. We'll settle on a certain size, weight excavator, then we'll work that in as they're coming up with the plans.
So you would have that specifications before you buy the excavator, so you would know kind of what you need.
Yeah, we'll work with the designs, the size we need. We'll probably have to get the excavator first, and do that we can get the exact specs, but we'll know what size we're working with. Yeah.
Okay. And my only fear would be if you buy an excavator and then it'd be too heavy, or didn't have enough reach for the barge, it would have to be a bigger barge, or, I mean, you know, just not get the cart before the horse.
Yeah, we will be designing the barge for the specific size excavator and reach those.
When you ask them to draw the barge and design the barge, what size are you going to use? Because if you ask them to draw you one that's 100 feet long, they're going to draw you one that's 100. If you ask to draw one that's 40, they're going to draw you one that's 40.
Yeah, we're gonna, I mean, we know before we can't go that long. I've talked with him about some of the other plans that we heard was maybe going 18 by 50 and putting a big excavator on there. He said that's going to be way too long, not stable. So it'll probably be in the 20 by 40 range. It should be similar to what we've been talking about. He's actually been down and looked at the channels before when we were going through the bidding process. So he's familiar with the sizes and what we can have. And he's also one of the ones that said he wouldn't really recommend going over 40 foot when he was down here before looking at the channels.
Adam, it appears the project is a complete failure. Do you have any idea how much we spent on our attorney throughout this process?
Probably.
Would it be possible to get that number? I'd just
Yeah, we
be
can get
curious.
that number. Yeah.
Okay.
Say under 2,000.
Is the designer going to recommend partial payment up front, full payment up front?
That's what we're gonna have to hash out in this next.
Okay.
Spencer.
These people, if they're experienced with dredging, can we open the scope up and have them look at what we need done and have them recommend the best method? Because maybe a mechanical excavator is not the best. And I still, you know, just experience I've seen where my parents live. They had some channels there that they hydraulically pumped into a field that was nearby. Little Africa is near Chitwood. It seems feasible to me that maybe the thing to do is clear to Little Africa, put a levee around it, pump all that stuff into there and let it just dry out. It's just a possibility, and I would challenge you to open the scope up and say, this is what we got to do. Are we going down the best road? Not to take anything away from all the people who've done a lot of hard work to do this, but as far as my knowledge, we haven't had any real experts involved, and I would like their opinion on that.
Absolutely, and we had discussed with him a little bit about hydraulic versus mechanical dredging when he was down here before. As far as if we start digging in the lake proper, hydraulics can be the way to go to move large amounts of sediment. But when we're in the areas with the channels, he said the areas actually have vegetation established, and where the sediment's actually above the water level now, he says you will not be able to use hydraulic dredging in areas with established vegetation. So as far as the areas of concern that we're looking at now, I think mechanical will still be the way to go. But once we start trying to reclaim area, we have to open it up. This is not the way to reclaim lake area.
So basically, if we would have got on it sooner, it would have been that alternative would have been better before the vegetation set in, before it got so.
You mean when it was $8,000 to dig him out? Is that
No, I'm just.
It's more than just chipwood too. It's more than just the chipwood.
Because I don't know what chipwood mud looks like, but I know the mud that you dug out, not where you're digging now, but before, for lack of a better example, it comes out looking like a giant cow pie when they dump it out of the truck. You know, it just runs, and that's easily pumped.
Yeah, that you could easily pump with hydraulic. Once you start getting down to hard pan and then kind of stabilize soils and vegetation, then he said it won't work there. But they do a lot of the hydraulic dredging. And I really liked working with them before. It was unfortunate. I was hoping they're going to put in a bid when we initially bidded it out. They said they had a lot come in at once, and it just kind of, they didn't get it in time.
Well, one of the things we need to keep in mind, it's not just Chitwood Addition. There's what, 17 places on the lake that needs this thing?
I'd like to challenge those locations. Personally, I'd like to put that on the itinerary for next month. I don't agree with that list, so.
I'll give you the pictures and measurements next time then. I got it.
That'd be fine, I have the same, so.
Not just opinion, but proof. I got it.
Then let's put that on the itinerary for next month if we could.
We can do that.
Well, I would kind of agree, though, a little bit with what Spencer's saying. It could be, but if we are going to go and consult with, somebody that's done this before, it may make sense of basically saying, here's our list of priorities, what we're trying to do, what do you recommend?
Yeah.
Certainly, I'm not an expert in, in that type of dredging, so I'd be kind of curious to see what their recommendations are, and if they just confirm what we already have been studying.
Well, and as a point of reference, I had some contacts today asking us to reevaluate our large system and what we're doing with that. So everything is a work in progress, and we need to be doing that. So just some unhappy campers hanging out, because they're important. Okay, are we?
As far as the current dredging, we've finished 112 and then part of 111. Up to where they get pretty shallow. I guess 111 comes in from south, and 112 is that north stretch along John Young Road. We removed 1,900 yards from service on 111, 2,600 from 112, and we just finished up 114 yesterday. So we removed 7,400 yards this year so far. We will be moving on to Eidolon next. We're getting ready to lose the operators for about a week as they're prepping for harvest season, and then they said they'll be back the last week of this month and the first couple weeks of October for digging. I have saved back some of the dredging hours. Our Rule 5 permit is up in December. So we've actually, in the newspaper on Monday, and then today in Brown County, we published our notice of intent to renew the Rule 5 for Possum Trot Creek. I'm expecting we are gonna have to put in some sediment plans in there. I kind of want to take we keep it dinged on silt fencing and grassing. I don't know how much maintenance has been done in the past there. But so we're gonna take the dirt that's there and build a earthen perimeter around Possum Trot and grass and seed it. That we have a permanent stabilized barrier instead of having to go in every year and redo the silt fencing, and that'll really help kind of keep the sediment there. We have had IDEM down a couple times this year. We never had any failures or anything that wasn't up to par, but we did have a couple of pages of recommendations. So as we're going through this process, I'm just trying to hold back hours that way in case they mandate that we implement some of these changes. We will be able to do that, because without a disposal site, the whole operation shuts down. But I have been talking with the lady at IDEM that does the Rule 5 permits, and I don't think it'll be too much of a headache. We get to use our same stormwater erosion plan that we had before. Essentially, it's just the new notice of intent and a $100 check to send up there. So that'll be sent out this week, and as we hear back from them, we'll know what we have to do for remediation up there, implementation. Next on the list, Boys and Girls Club, the Romp. They have this every year. It's a fundraising event for Boys and Girls Club. Actually, Lance, would you like to give a little update on the Romp?
Yeah, I think, I guess for disclosure purposes, I do serve on the board for the Boys and Girls Club of Bloomington. But every year they have a fundraiser out at Lake Clement. As you know, they do operate the camp and such of that nature, so they do raise funds. I don't know if many of you have seen the Tough Mudder competitions and things of that nature, where they run all over kinds of obstacle courses and things of that nature. No, they don't plan to electrify fences or set anything on fire, but they're doing a little bit more low-key version of that. But they're going to be hosting that basically out at Riddle Point Park in coordination also with Camp Rock as a way to kind of raise funds for some of the activities and stuff that they do there. Turns out there is kind of a hardcore contingent of people that tend to like doing that type of thing, I guess, jumping in the mud, but it kind of goes on. And then I think along with it this year, they're planning on running a 5K as well. It does take place on Halloween, so I do think they are planning to put a Halloween theme to it, so who knows what kind of costumes and stuff might show up. But, that is Halloween, October 31st, yeah.
What time?
First thing in the morning, I know probably first race around 8 or 9 o'clock. Usually they'll be done. They'll run various heats and stuff, but usually it's done about noon, 1 o'clock.
We have historically waived the special event fee for them. We partner up as part of Bloomington Boys and Girls Club. It's a very good cause. Historically, we've waived the special events fee. The park's already shut down. So I seek a motion from the board to waive the special event fee. Special event fee at Riddle Point Park for the Boys and Girls Club.
I'll move that we waive the special event fee.
I'll
for the
second.
shelter.
I'll second.
Special event and shelter fee, so it'd be $375 is being waived.
That's what we did last year, right?
Yeah.
So you made the motion, I seconded?
And I included the shelter house fee.
All those in favor of waiving the 2 fees for the romp, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then I'll have to
Oh, you
abstain.
have to abstain, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we do have a conflict of interest form. It's required for all the board members to sign. So we have Andy here. We need to have him sign off on this. I don't think you do any business currently with the lake. He has been a great source for helping out around the park. I guess I can talk about, we have a volunteer day coming up on October 3rd. We will have it started at 9 a.m. And actually for only a $100 fee, Andy was able to get brush hogs, skid steers, dump trucks.
We're renting the brush hog. I'm providing all the other equipment. Yeah.
And so we'll be clearing out a lot of areas that have just been taken over by greenbrier and invasives, and there's a lot of areas in that park that we really want to kind of open up that's just not being utilized. It's just kind of become overgrown. So we'll be clearing all those areas out and then adding those onto the mowing areas for next year to maintain, just to open up the usable areas of the park. We'll also be doing some invasives. Sue Solomon has a little bit more information and knowledge on that than I do, but we will be conducting some invasive areas, some removal, cutting down olive autumn and a few different plants around the park. So we have there. We also want to have people, we're coming up with the list now. We have so many trees being taken over by vines and killing them off. So we're going to be putting people on killing vines. We need to clear off the shorelines. A lot of the trees around the park need to be cut back down that are growing out of the riprap. So we have a pretty full day there. We'll put LLCD. I think we'll have just beverages and maybe light snacks there to help out the volunteers throughout the day. So I encourage everybody to sign up. We do have
There was a rumor of a free lunch, I think.
A free lunch?
Yes,
Fire
there
up the
was.
grill.
It depends, though. It depends on the time of the IU football game because somebody has tickets. There might be lunch.
Two people
We'll just have to see. 2 people do. You never know.
How are you gonna advertise this? Because after the last one, I probably had 40 people say, I had no idea I would have showed up.
We do have it on the website now. We're actually trying to.
Make sure you mention the Eventbrite.
Yeah, we on the website now. If you go to the website, we have the work day on there. We set up a Eventbrite registration, so you can click on there. You go to it. It's actually free for us since we're not charging for the event. They do it for free, so you can go to the website. It'll say the work day. Click on the Eventbrite link and you can sign up, and that way we can keep a list of everybody and their contact information. Also, it's Myrtle Point Park Volunteer Day .eventbrite.com, but if you just go to the website, there'll be links right there. To
So that makes
sign up.
people have to seek it out. People don't know to seek it out.
I know.
That's what
We
I'm
can,
asking.
we'll also send out an email to free
I was
holders.
gonna say,
Thank you.
Eventbrite sends emails out to,
Yeah.
to the listserv.
Oh, perfect.
So we'll send out an email to the free holder listserv. Next up, we have the vegetation treatment update.
All right, vegetation's looking pretty good around the lake. I don't have a final update for you today because I'm still waiting on a final invoice from Aquatic Control. So I need to figure out what their final total was on that last treatment. We've had a few treatments this year. Things have gone pretty well. We did get our $5,000 from DNR Lair. I've been talking to Ashley Haviland, our representative, and we're just basically waiting for the state to send us a check. So that'll be good there. There was a little bit of concern on the Lotus treatment the last go around. We've changed the maintenance line a little bit. In an attempt to save money as well, we decided to move it out a little bit. Some of the Lotus that was being treated is in not very much water. You're not going to be boating back there, so basically we've made a new rule of thumb: 150 feet to 200 feet from the shoreline, and kind of loop around Eidolon and Salmon Harbor. So I know, Mike, in your area, I'd like to cut it back. Your channel is completely open. I'd like to cut it back maybe another 50 feet so that it's more open. But I think cutting that, removing
Those people
that.
will not stop emailing. That's all I'm going to tell you. They are very persistent.
And along with those concerns, a lot of them are people want to see the open lake. But the open lake up there is about a foot of depth of water. And what happens when you wipe out these established wetlands, it destabilizes the soil. So the lotus actually being there helps lock in and stabilize the soil and also slows the water down so it drops out before it comes in. So while you want to look at open lake, you're actually taking away a lot of the benefit provided by the natural vegetation in those areas. We do want to keep it out of the channels, keep it back a little bit off the slow or the shallow area line. But last year we treated 11 acres behind that line and minimal water just for pure aesthetics, and I am 100% against that. I understand keeping the channels open, but I do not want to just ruin what we're actually gaining naturally from these wetlands.
How far are we below normal pool right now?
We're about a foot.
Is there a place we actually measured, or do we just kind of eyeball it, or?
We go down to the dam at normal pool, right in the corner where the dam settled. We have just a small gradual flow over, plus just from the marks. We don't have an actual gauge out there. We've been talking about getting some type of electronic gauge that would do temperatures and the level, but we just kind of eyeball right now, and we're about a foot low.
John, you have a gauge, correct?
Mhm.
Is it
So-
more official than some?
Oh, I doubt it.
Okay.
But I wouldn't,
So what's
I'd
actual
estimate right
normal
now
pool?
we're 8 to 10 inches.
As far as like how much water going over?
What's that?
What would you consider normal pool as far as the amount of water going over the spillway?
Historically, normal pool's been 630 feet. I'm guessing the lake was built, they built the spillway at 630 feet above mean sea level. Last year, or maybe 2 years ago now, when we had the bathymetric survey done, we needed to find a control to figure out what the water level was in order to do the survey and, do things throughout the year to base off. We needed a mark so that we knew, 2 months from now when they come back out, are we 6 inches down, are we 6 inches up? So we took 3 static sessions on the dam, one in the middle and one on each end. And then there's also there's 2 kind of by Riddle Point Park. So we've got markers that have the actual elevation. Now, the spillway is actually under 630. It's 629.54 on the left and 629.7 in the middle, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but so basically, normal pool is where the spillway is at, which is kind of
water flowing over.
It's going, one spot's lower, one spot's higher, so it's kind of, 629 to 630.
Yeah, if you're looking right at the
629 and a
spillway,
half.
usually I guess on the western edge is about 3 to 4 feet. That just has like a gradual flow over at normal pool. So that's kind of where we base it off of.
With that vegetation treatment, would you please email those folks?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, that concludes the manager's report.
All right. We have an initial winter drawdown discussion. This is not the night that we vote about it, but we just wanted to have a small conversation, traditionally just to give people some food for thought. And when you come back, I believe it's the next meeting, or is it, I'm sorry, is it October? Yeah, it's October.
Yeah, it's October.
So give you some time to chew on it. Adam and I talked a little bit. We've been talking about so many other things that's kind of snuck up on us, but I will let him address a couple of things that we hit on as an initial start.
Right. I really want to look into the past since we've been treating, how much we actually save and what we spend on treatment of milfoil compared to what the drawdown is. So over the next few weeks, we'll be getting all that data and actually seeing if there is any correlation between drawing down the lake and saving money on vegetation treatment. According to all the literature out there, it's a crapshoot. It's hard to tell if it's actually beneficial for the vegetation. Even out here when we draw it down, it kind of, things are really varied. Treatments that we do can sometimes last multiple years, so that may kind of be part of the causation of it. Depending on how far we draw down the lake, one thing to think about is if you're exposing the sediment below the reinforced areas, you're opening a lot of these soils up for destabilization and migration. And that actually, when you draw the lake down that much and fill it back up, the unprotected areas take a big hit. And it's also, I've been reading, not that great for the vegetation areas and also macroinvertebrates. A lot of the species that nest in the mud really use the water for insulation and ice for insulation throughout the winter, and you can actually have pretty negative impacts on the biota from exposing them to the freezing ground. So I do want to look into this correlation, see if we have been saving money on milfoil treatments versus a drawdown, and I'll have to look into that a little bit more. As of now, I know we do it for docking structures. That is a good reason to do it, but we also ask people to remove their docks during the winter time for this purpose.
I would just be careful. I think it would be a compromise, because I know, not this past year, but the previous year when we left it up, we had the real hard freeze, and there was significant damage on the lake, because when the lake expands and the ice and all that happens, it does do a lot of damage to the shoreline that way as well. So, although I would agree we don't need to draw it down 8 feet, I do think we need to kind of get it off some of the seawalls and such so that they remain preserved, in the freeze-thaw cycle that we go through.
And that was a good compromise. It was a
The three and a half is what we did last year. Well, and along with the freeze that we had, we then had a rain, if you remember. It froze early, and then it rained, and then we had flood. So a lot of folks had issues.
lot of damage,
and so, but we did do 3.5 last year as a compromise. I had no complaints.
No.
And in the freeholder survey, the majority of people were for a drawdown of 3 to 4 feet, I believe it was.
Any other input on that? I'm not sure. It seems like we have to kind of go through this every year, but information does change. It does change. So
there was a gentleman at the DSG meeting that did complain because he said draw it down 6 to 8 feet or leave it up because his bubbler doesn't work.
Okay. I forgot that. You're right. That's right.
So there are some people that say leave it up or take it way down.
Right.
Well, and if we're gonna do the 3.5 feet, it would be nice if we had an actual marker on the lake to where it would say, instead of walking out and going, well, that looks about right.
We were pretty good on that last year. We used that marker on the ramp and then had rebar stepping out. And it worked. It wasn't the easiest method, but I think it was pretty accurate.
Yes.
If you draw it down and then you have a big rain after you shut the gate, why can't you open the dang gate up again?
We could. Really, it's going to depend on the weather, if there's already ice forming or not, if there's snow down. But absolutely, we could. We could do that and try to maintain it down.
We usually do reopen it if it's early enough in the season. It's just that rain is usually more powerful than what the gate lets out. So the gate may be back open. You just may not realize it, maybe. Because once it gets real saturated again, it takes a while for it to even start dropping again.
Deep Blossom Creek pretty close, and I can usually tell when the gate's open.
Yeah, you can call us too, we'll let you know.
What was the analogy you used, John? Because I think I asked that question too. It was like letting water out through a straw or something.
Well, the pipe only has about 10 square feet of area in it. And the spillway itself is, what, 300 and some feet long. So there's no contest. The sluice gate was not put in for flood control. It's not big enough.
We get about 2.5 inches a day.
2.5 a day.
They can't all go over the dam, all the spillway.
No, it's there to manage the lake, but it can't handle, because of the size of the watershed and the size of the pipe. It's just, there's not enough pipe there.
Yeah, without rain, James, you know how far we can generally draw down per day?
About 3 inches a day, 2 to 3 inches a day.
All right, any other thoughts on drawdown? We'll go home and sleep on it. And I suppose, we've got survey results. You can certainly poll your folks if you want to, or throw out an email, and if they have input, they can give you that. That brings us to public comment. And Lance had approached me before the meeting with...
I just had a request from one of our freeholders in District 1. We kind of had a family in our district that's gone through some hard time, Charles and Karen Mitchler. Karen has since passed, and unfortunately Charles has terminal cancer. So they're kind of going through a hard time, and they just wanted acknowledgement of that.
Can you spell that last name for me?
M-I-C-H.
Some of us couldn't hear you, sorry, Lance.
Charles and Karen Mitchler over in District 1. Karen has passed, and Charles is terminal.
And Charles what?
Is terminal.
He was a Purdue ag professor, had just retired.
Question, I know you were talking about erosion earlier. And of course, then obviously we have a lot with bean blossom, you know, with the creek coming in. But I've also noticed over by Shuffle Creek at South Shore, where that culvert is, when you get a large rain, you're getting a lot of sedimentation coming out through that culvert. You can actually see a plume out in the water. So I don't know if you guys are considering, because I mean, obviously you have lots of creeks flowing into the lake and a lot of watersheds. I don't know if you had a comprehensive plan as far as trying to minimize some of the erosion besides bean blossom.
Well, we haven't looked at the culvert side. We need to go check out the one right underneath the trestle where that culvert comes
Yes,
out.
yeah. That's kind of an odd area because you got that large watershed right there, and so all that erosion pipe coming on uphill. But you will see a plume come out there, especially in the hard rains.
We'll look into that.
The dredging study group has identified 13 culverts coming into the lake. They have identified those as part maintenance that we need to do to the lake. We don't have the money to provide the maintenance for it right now, which is why we need to apply for this grant or do something. But
Yeah, that's what picked my
13 culverts have been identified that bring water into the lake.
Yeah, so maybe you could use grant money for some of that, thing, it sounds like.
That's what it sounded like, yeah, sediment diversion, retention. And it was great to hear that Lake Lemon proper is a critical area. I wasn't aware of that. I thought it was the watershed was a critical area on the creek. So that is kind of really ignites that.
It's great, it's not great.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword. You're right.
It's not great that we're a critical area. It is great that we can get grant money for it.
Well put. Anybody else? Ron? Oh, I'm sorry, Barb. Ladies first.
This has to do with dredging. I did raise my hand
I'm
during
sorry,
the dredging area and nobody called me.
I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
That's okay.
It's Ann's fault.
I have a couple of questions. Number one, if I understood correctly, you're going back to Eidolon and dredge some more. Haven't they been dredged already?
They're next on the priority list that we
I
established
thought
this year.
Eidolon was dredged already.
They dredged the access to the tip of Eidolon. Down the actual channels though, I don't think it's been touched since Dick Payne did it.
Correct. So they have, you're right, Barb, there was a channel dredged in 2007, I believe, by Dick Payne. And then last year, the tip was filling in again, and it was noted that they are filling way back in because of possum trot. So the tip of Eidolon was cleared again, and they have been on the list waiting to be what we consider, hopefully will be a maintenance dig. But the longer we go, the longer it's
Is it not
worsening.
usable or something? I mean,
My folks have boats that they.
Boat access.
They can't get their boats on their lifts anymore. They're sitting on land, basically, up near the creek.
Me and James were up there yesterday too, and it's about 2.5 feet of average water depth in the channel. And actually, once you come to where it kind of makes that turn right into possum trot, it goes down to prop was just spitting out chunks of mud.
I'm hearing less than 8 inches.
Okay,
Yeah, so-
my next question. When the small barge is on the lake and ready to go, are you going to use the whole year's budget dredging out a channel? And even if that is the case or whatever, I don't think anybody has done a study or really actually knows how much dredge material is in each channel. But are you going to be using a whole year's budget just on a particular area and maybe not even get one channel dug?
That would be a board decision, but I highly suspect that we will focus some efforts there and then have to focus some efforts on other areas of the lake, just to kind of maintain the equal work going on around the lake. So I don't think we'd be spending 100% of the budget in one channel. We'd probably do partial budget and then move to another area of the lake for a little bit.
Yeah, Barb, if I might mention, I'm trying to think which meeting it typically is, but usually in the spring. March, you know, we set a priority list of the dredging priorities. And so we try to look at the whole lake and determine, you know, which are the critical
I
ones.
know that, but
So we'll
way
still
back
look
when
through
I
that.
had asked the same question, nobody answered my question.
Yeah.
About whether they were going to spend a whole year's budget starting to dredge those channels over in that area.
In addition to, I apologize for somebody.
I was just gonna say, has that area been dredged before, ever?
No.
So we don't know.
Right.
How much dredging material is gonna come out of it.
About 3,300 cubic yards.
You can do an area.
Say that again. Okay.
The
so-
dredging study group, they put a
We
percentage
do have.
of what they think will be pulled out and what percentage of the budget will be used
Okay.
to dig that out.
And
And they
what
present
is
that
that
to us.
information? You know what that information is?
I don't know what it is right
Okay.
now because I don't have it with me.
Okay.
What was your question?
What is the information of what one channel? To answer
How
your
much
question.
dredge material is in one channel?
We do have some approximations.
We have an approximation, James has confirmed this. The Walker Channel out to where they dredged to Louis Bowser's Point is approximately 3,200 cubic yards.
So that's not an entire season because.
Times $9 a cubic yard would
Because
be how much budget
they took
money
out
we would use.
2,600 yards on 112. So that's only, you know, 2/3 of that, but that's just.
That is
one
correct, but this is a smaller barge. This is a smaller barge
So
that
take a
will
little
cost
longer, yeah.
more. We don't have that cost.
Yeah.
We have other companies that have used similar sizes to go off of.
Okay.
But no, it is not a full year's budget.
It's not a full year's budget, okay.
Well, the channel will be half as wide, so the yardage, you're
Yes.
gonna go a lot
That's true.
farther, and
Yeah,
it's gonna
you're
look
right.
like you have
You're
less
right.
yards.
So it shouldn't take the entire budget, and it shouldn't take all the dredging time.
And I think that's,
Theoretically.
well, I think that's important. We've tried to stress this,
Yeah.
and I still get people that say, well, I never heard this. If the barge is 20 feet wide and the channel, finger cove, whatever you guys want to call them, is 40 feet wide, the LLC is only dredging the center of that channel, the 20-foot wide width of whatever the barge is. From there to the banks, docks, or whatever is private dredging. We pay for that. Whoever it is.
Freeholders.
Freeholders.
Right, the freeholders.
It's not digging out an area. It is regaining lake access for people that had water. And the people that say we bought what or got what we paid for, they're uninformed. Very uninformed.
I think those.
I can show you again pictures of grown people swimming, women sitting around a floating table in those fingers and coves and channels. So there was water there. It hasn't always been dry. So.
Thank you. I know that's been said before. Thank you for the refresher.
I know he's got a presentation. I know he does.
Oh.
Yeah, I have one more.
Good.
And I'll make this fast.
Sue already got
I
it.
I know, I already talked to him.
got on the computer and the phone. And this is a company. This is a company. It's BNR Barge, and I just lucked into this or whatever, but was looking for marine engineers, buoyancy engineers, someone that could design us a barge since the contract with McCullough fell through, and that was really what we was paying him for, was that design. We know we need a 40 by 20 by 5. We did that work ourselves. The hopper, where it is and how big it is and where it has to sit on this 40 by 20 by 5, where the excavator is and how much it can weigh as opposed to the hopper and reach and everything. That's what we're paying for, and I think that's what you said you found. It was interesting to find that BNR, and I talked to Rob Kirkendall, and I asked him, specifically, so you guys can design, build, and deliver a barge. It was pretty much what we had asked for. Someone to design it, build it, deliver it, guarantee it. And he said yes, that they would use a marine engineer out of St. Louis, Missouri. And he said what they do is they would bid basically what we asked for. It's just a bid for that 40 by 20 by 5 with no design. That part really doesn't change the price of it. The consulting fee we would pay up front, again, like you said that your company that you're talking to.
Yeah.
The other interesting part is I asked him, or he said, well, I did a bid for you guys. And if you notice on the bid, it's November of 2014. And I was really curious as to why the board had never received this. I asked him and he said, well, I hadn't heard anything from you guys, but what I do remember is that you guys were wanting some weird design and that I told you it didn't really make sense, but it was something that your operator wanted. And I said, okay. I said, well, we have a new manager. I gave him your name, and I told him that you would probably be contacting him because this is just another, it's someone that was there all along, but for some reason we was never told about. And I don't know
Well,
why.
I can fill you in on that, because I was at all those meetings in Taylorville. That was when we met, I think you gave us the name of Legay. His last name was Legay, I can't remember his first name. But he was basically a broker, salesman, so to speak, and he was supposed to find us a barge and all this, and he basically got us in line with this B&R in Taylorville, Illinois, right? Is that right? So Bob, Levi, and I drove out there, and they were going to we drove out there to talk to him about, the barge design, the whole thing, diesel motors. We were still into that diesel mode. We wanted a diesel motor. And he wouldn't build us a single piece barge, and he didn't have anything to do with a diesel motor. So he basically said, we'll build you, whatever it was.
Who was it that you talked to?
I get you his name.
That was the salesman, though, that met us down here, right?
The salesman met here. I hate calling him a salesman. That's kind of probably not his title. But yeah, we met. I think there was maybe a couple board members present. We met at the barge, talked about all that, and then basically he got back with us and gave us this quote. And we went out to Taylorville and met with these guys. Or I'm sorry, maybe we met before we got the quote. I'm sure we did. Because then we sat down after. He didn't want to build. We wanted something wide. We wanted something 20 by 50 at that point with a diesel motor. And he didn't want to do the diesel thing. He didn't want, he built sectional barges, 10 by 40 or, 10 by 50, whatever.
It says on here what their most popular barge is, which is the 10 by 40, and that's what they quoted. But my question is there was someone that would design with a marine engineer.
It got killed in the DSG, I'm sure.
Was that all them DSGs? No.
Well,
no.
You think the diesel was the issue, maybe?
Well, there were a lot of issues. We met out there. He was going to build the whole package eventually. Maybe I'm screwing these two things up.
Yeah,
but
we would have at least seen this bid. We would have at least seen this.
That bid's been around.
It never have you ever seen it?
Oh, it's.
You ever seen it, Lance?
I don't recall, but I'll have to go back and look at the minutes.
It doesn't matter.
No,
okay?
it doesn't.
You know what matters?
Here, hold on. One of the main things that nipped that in the butt was they were going to put the whole package together, and we went out and saw the excavator. And the excavator was really worn. We did not like the excavator, so that's when we kind of went back, and then went to the, then we met with Dick, and then, now.
Okay, but
there's a lot of years in between.
It is a 98.
Yeah.
My point on this is in April 15th of this year, we was told by Levi again, and stood right here and said, there is no one but Dick Payne that can design this. There's no one out there that will do it.
And
there's people out there.
Yeah.
We know that now, and we are moving forward. I just think it's interesting information because sometimes you need to know where you was, and it helps you get to where you want to be.
But here's another option.
It is another option. There's another buoyancy. I forwarded it to you. Buoyancy engineers, they are interested in giving us a quote, a price for the design. All it is just the design. And then you would have to facilitate or orchestrate going to J&J, wherever.
So we got a guy that's going to give us a design.
We have two guys.
So we're getting our.
Well,
have a couple.
and it's good to look back, but it is good, but I think we need to go forward. Whatever happened,
Exactly.
it's too far back, it really is water under the bridge.
It is water under the bridge, but it's kind of
I
interesting
appreciate-
information.
I appreciate you.
I'm still not done. Mr. Langley, I'm glad to see you.
Dun, dun, dun.
I would like to ask you to get back with us on this and as to why, and I sent an email in there, and I did it before I was told, and I don't have a problem saying who told me because it was Marty and Bob at a DSG that said, be careful and be careful what you ask for, and you don't want to involve the CBU. So, but my question is to you is why would the CBU not be interested in at least matching our dredging budget or putting money back into the lake that you truly own, we only lease it, why are you not interested in saving this natural resource that is only decreasing in value? And water, we know, is going to be in high demand. I mean, all you gotta do is look at what they're talking about up north of Indianapolis. Why would you not be interested in partnering back in with us? We have the equipment. We're trying to buy another piece of equipment and putting money back into this lake. I would like for you to, if you can answer it now, or put it in front of the...
I can partially answer it now.
Okay.
You know, this is a story of government in Indiana. Too few resources to make act, and too many priorities. We struggled this year to get $1.4 million to pay to maintain a water tank on the east side of campus that clearly needed to be painted 10 years ago. We are cash strapped. We do not find an environment, you know, we're fee-based. We're not fee-based, but rate-based. So we go through a myriad of government agencies to get approval for rates to finance, and we have to show what we're spending that money for. As long as we have infrastructure that's in need of repair, and every utility in Indiana has infrastructure that's in need of repair, the Regulatory Commission is not going to allow us to put money into something that we're not actively using as a water source.
Not even for future?
I'll explore that part of that question, but I'm here to tell you that we are cash strapped. Right now, we need somewhere in the neighborhood of a 20% water rate increase. I haven't found one person outside of the Utilities Administration who thinks that's a great idea.
Well,
not one.
But this is...
And I've got pipe in the ground that is 100 years old. You know, we just finished a $41 million project at the Monroe Water Treatment Plant to secure water supply for Bloomington for the next 20 years. We play a seesaw game with the water or the wastewater and the drainage utility, getting rate increases there, and frankly, politics with a small p. I'm not talking Democrat or Republican. I'm talking about my experience after 40 years in municipal government is everybody wants to play, and not very many people want to pay. And that's kind of.
I would just like to see the board entertain or look at this. It needs to be a discussion.
Yeah, and I appreciate, the comment. I'll just interject a little bit of history too, in regards to really why the Conservancy was initially formed, and I think it kind of goes back a little bit to, what John stated. Lake Lemon going back a ways prior to the Conservancy District was, you think we have problems now. It was in dire shape, again, because resources and things of that nature. It wasn't a priority for the city. They've got other priorities, as he mentioned, that they dealt with. And it was really the condition of the lake and what was happening that, the Conservancy District was formed, to try to take it over, to basically get money back into the lake to preserve it, as the future going forward. Obviously, utilities with their strat budget, was willing to kind of go along with the long-term lease, to help us, improve the quality of the lake, but they actually allowed us to, take on that initiative and to keep the lake up and do the things that we're doing. So it really kind of even goes back to really the origination and the formation of the Conservancy District and why it was initially formed.
I was here with you.
Yeah,
I remember.
That's kind of the beauty of the Conservancy relationship with the utility. We have 2,200 acres out here. You guys were able to form basically a tax district that allowed protection of personal property around the lake. It maintains our resource, and we have a lot of respect and appreciation for that. It doesn't get me back to putting more money in the purse.
It's money you'll recoup, though.
How?
Water source they're talking about building them up north. Water sources, you know it's worth money.
Well,
The land that you
on a number
own.
of fronts, it's worth money. I mean, there's a great temptation. No one in this administration or the preceding two administrations has seriously talked about divesting property around Lake Lemon. One of the things that comes into that equation is it's very hard to do equitably. We sell a piece of property, in my opinion, we kind of abandon the property owner who's already got a lakefront property. We sell off the property between that house and the lake shore for a lot of money. That kind of it disserves the people who have been here and who have invested and, you know, count on that as your biggest investment.
Is Lake Griffey an active water source?
No.
No, they cut it off.
Where did the money come for the restoration for that?
Lake Griffey is maintained by the Parks Department.
Parks Department.
Yeah.
Barb, you had a question? I know you've been waiting.
That's Mr. Thrasher, I think, right, that you are Thrasher?
Yes, Rob.
Okay. If you had been involved with the Conservancy early on, you would realize and you would know how much the City of Bloomington Utilities has helped the Conservancy to get off the ground. If it hadn't been for all their help monetarily, and monetarily I mean by the repair of the gates at the spillway, the mowing of the grass, the loan of a truck. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. Can you remember, Bob? I'm sorry.
How about saving
But there
our
were a
lake?
lot of things that the City of Bloomington Utilities did for the Conservancy.
I'm just talking about saving our
So they
lake.
did put money into the game, so to speak.
I think it's time for them to do it more.
You know, there are ways of generating revenue without raising taxes and without going to the water company. We've identified at least a dozen revenue generating opportunities on this lake. For example, a gas pump, dock rentals, everything from product sales to wedding, catering. A lot of opportunities to generate revenue that the board could look into. And really, if you're going to save the lake, you're going to have to think outside the box. Think about maybe expanding the district boundaries, leverage development projects. You know, we need another $150,000 a year for dredging, or we're going to continue to lose 1% of the lake a year. Nobody's going to pay that in taxes. The water company doesn't have the money. If we don't get creative, then we're not going to save this lake, period.
We also have an endowment percolating. I don't want to put you on the spot, Suze, but that's something else we're considering. An endowment, Barb, to potentially be a pool for money for funding these things. Thank you.
Pam, I think.
Happy to give you a sense of, you know, what our financial priorities are. I've got a capital investment plan that goes out 5 or 6 years for the utility stuff we got to do. To give you a sense of how far behind we are on that, I have one example is, and this isn't the, you know, the biggest booger in the pile, but I was supposed to expand our laboratory capabilities in 2007. Project's not off the ground. We spent, again, $41 million on increasing our pumping capability. That's an investment in the future of the city of Bloomington and our county, really. We have service area in both. But there are real projects out there that need to be done. And my wife gets tired of hearing me talk about this, so I kind of appreciate this opportunity. That, you know, there's just not the political will, small p again, to do it. It just isn't there. But I'd be happy to share that.
Well, there was
we
a
market draft because it changes literally every budget.
Yeah. Well, there was a gentleman that came to the bathymetric studies and is on the board and said that the CBU is in a lot better financial shape now than it was
10
5.
years ago, we were $3 million in debt.
So
80% of our costs.
that's where all this is coming from. I'd like to see you guys, you got skin in the game too.
I have a question about the dredging. Just Ron said there's 3,200 cubic yards to be taken out wherever you're living at. Is that full? Like, you think that's all? Like, that's going to clear out and give everybody access?
No.
Oh, no, that's just one channel.
That's the dire emergency where we weed eat the waterfront property we used to have.
Susan, you had a comment that I
Yeah, I
skipped.
was just going to say that at the October meeting, I'll be sending something out to all the board members, but I think we can probably make an announcement at the October meeting.
Okay, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but I thought
it's okay.
we should let everyone know that's being.
Let's have something we can look forward to.
Exactly.
Backup water source.
Spencer.
I got a
Call
couple things.
Griffey and
Thank you.
Lake Lemon.
Backup
We
water.
call them.
Okay.
You know, we had during the 9/11 preparation, and the federal government, you know, issued legislation or passed legislation that said we had to plan for it, basically. We identified both Lake Lemon and Griffey. Griffey plant is shut down, so we're talking about transferring water and pumping water. You know, our current plan, if we lose the ability to pump from the lake, is to literally man the storage tanks we have and disseminate water in vessels from that location. And if, you know, I know just enough about emergency planning to be dangerous, but I envision armed guards
Yeah,
at the
chaos.
tanks if it gets to that point.
Yeah.
I had the pleasure of being in the Kokomo tornado a couple of years ago, and I learned more in 45 minutes about crowd behavior
Yeah.
than, you know, that makes it easy to sleep at night. It's, whoa, what an experience.
Seen them walk.
Everybody's friendly for the first 10 minutes. After that, they're driving through your yard, they're ignoring police officers, they're endangering themselves without knowing it. I mean, it was a rude awakening. It was a good experience for me, but whoa.
Spencer was wanting to speak.
Last Thursday, I was out on the lake Thursday morning fishing, and out there, basically between the Long Causeway and Bloomington Yacht Club, between the shoreline and halfway out, there was thousands, if not tens of thousands, snail shells floating around.
Yes.
What's that?
It's a great
I
question.
had actually talked to our regional biologist. He said he doesn't know much about snails, so put me on to a state biologist. And his first question was, what other species were affected? He goes, was there any fish kills along with the snails? I go, no, there's no fish kill, it's just the snails. He said they are invasive, so the fact that just the snails are dying off is actually a good thing. The populations are probably getting too high, and as a natural thing to happen, disease can spread through. But he said the bigger factor is the water temperatures. They like cool water, and the fact that we were in the mid 80s in water temperature was stressing them out. And so, quite frankly, I know it's kind of eerie to look at and put me on guard too. We started getting calls. They said overall it's a good thing because it kind of weeded out an invasive species. Actually, Randy stopped down and talked about that too today.
Okay, and then another thing, the spillway area. Do we have any control over that at all? Because I know Art's picking up a lot of trash down there, even human waste. It puts a lot more traffic in front of our house. Last weekend, we had people that basically stole potatoes and the cash box from Kenny Clark's food stand and threw the potatoes at our front window. Now, if it would have hit a normal window, I'm confident it would have broken. It hit the safety glass on the door and it didn't break. The next night, we had tomatoes thrown in our house. Kenny had a whole wagon full of watermelon stolen, and this has nothing to do with spillway because they threw them out going North Shore. But
There's one by my shoreline. That explains it. It just showed
Yeah,
up.
and they were the best watermelon.
They looked really good.
They were really good.
Really good, and somebody
That's-
stole them and broke them down, and dumped them down the road, all the way to Trail Line.
Where are these people coming from? From the lake
Well,
onto?
I don't think there are any good people coming down in vehicles. I know it's been an ongoing problem for
Right.
since.
But can we close it at night, or
Spillway Road?
the spillway area,
The whole.
The parking area.
the parking area
Because
there?
when I came home from work, we heard that, so I went down to the spillway, and there was a truck, and some people were fishing, and said just before you got, because I asked Spencer actually asked them, why did you throw some at my door? And they said, we've been here fishing for a couple of hours, but just before you came down, there was a truck, and it went flying down and backed up, and people got out and ran down the hill. And then I've also seen people with tents, which makes me wonder, are they camping down there?
Not supposed to be.
It's just, well, but there's no signs
No,
or anything.
there isn't,
There's
yeah.
nothing to stop anybody.
They keep, every time we put a sign up, they tear them down. It's been an ongoing problem. I suppose we could look into who all needs access there, as far as City of Bloomington Utilities, us, and maybe before that Circle Drive is cabled off.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
no vehicle. I think that'd be just
Yeah.
stop it right in its tracks, and maybe give a key to some of the local residents right there if they need to get to it, and we can keep one, just completely cut off traffic from there.
I would just comment too, we just all need to be vigilant, so if you see suspicious, stuff going on, please call the police. I mean, I had an issue even in my district where somebody was kind of walking around, it's after Labor Day, people know that the lake's kind of shutting down, so it is going to attract some unfortunate circumstances, so just be vigilant. If you see something suspicious, call it in, report it.
But we have a lot of traffic
Yeah.
because of that area for people to pull in. And if anybody goes there at night, it doesn't say that it's closed off, like you close off Riddle Point. So we did call the police, and we got the number of the truck too, the license plate, but that was before we knew Kenny's stuff was stolen. But there's nothing they can do because there's no signs. or anything that
I really
says-
think we just gated it,
That
cabled it
would be
off,
fine
and
with
steal
me.
it.
That'd be
Yes.
fine.
That is
He
a
came up on,
highway,
yeah, I'll ask her,
and
because he
any
came
large
up on our
vehicles
deck and,
There's nowhere for a large vehicle
Yeah.
to turn around.
yeah, send it if you
Yes,
wouldn't, I
truck.
can send it.
So
Yeah.
it would be a county highway
said-
discussion as well.
All right.
But there might be some mitigation,
I
but
didn't see the guy.
people could get back there, and
Saw the
the
truck.
only way to turn around would be to have to turn around in
And
front
that
of
circle.
properties.
They ran out
So
of the car.
we
I
probably should be thinking about that.
Okay, all right, I got
Okay.
one more thing.
Okay.
Just so all of you know, the barge, when it comes in and you're putting it there on Kenny's property, it is more than a minor inconvenience. I'm not saying it's a major inconvenience, but this summer, like last year when I go swimming off my dock, the water's relatively clean, you get out of the water, you don't feel like you're filthy. Now my hair is just full of dirt. When the barge backs out, and I can show you pictures, there's a plume of mud that goes out all over my dock, around my dock and 50 yards out. And last year, and I know, Ron, that this is small in comparison to what you're dealing with, so I understand. But the other thing is, like last year when you walked on the bottom around my dock, it'd squish up between your toes and stuff like that. Now it's calf deep. It's just when every time they unload, it's plop, 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 plop into the truck. And I don't know, I gotta say that probably 5% of what comes off that barge is going back in the lake. In my opinion, just watching, it's just, especially when it's runny. The clumps kind of stay in the bucket better, but when it's real runny, it's just like if you're you've got a spoonful of something you're trying to carry across your kitchen, it's gonna spill out. And it's just,
The dust.
I'll be glad when you go back the other end. And
Well,
it's all
that's-
wrong.
What is your annual budget for dredge?
100,000.
About 100. Yeah.
I'm gonna spend $200,000 this year on sewage sludge, total. So I feel your pain.
25, what's the deal?
Sue.
I just want to pick up on what Spencer was saying about the depth of the sludge, pardon me, but the between your toes stuff. And maybe one of the things we can look at is where there is that partial amount from the barge is not making it onto the dump truck to go across the road. We should plan on having a little removal there to get rid of what was inadvertently dumped as a courtesy to freeholders who were affected by the transfer. And I think that at minimum, that should be considered.
Yeah, we shouldn't leave people's
Because what you're
dock
doing is you're
area
dumping
in
on
worse
us
shape
and
than
not getting
going
it
in.
into Kenny's field. So just plan an extra day to take out what you just dumped on us.
The problem is it just spreads out so much.
And that's just a courtesy. The inconvenience is
You did that, right?
significant.
Yeah, we took out a barge load, from where we unload at, I had them go over one other full barge load length and then clear out. We took out an extra barge load to the right where it kind of draws it around. So we did remove some excess. I'm sure it's still kind of sloughs, and I didn't even think about the turbidity from the barge removing. I mean,
Exactly.
Yeah.
as far as it traveling further distances, I think that may play a.
Well, and then the other thing that happens too is we get a busy weekend or a lot of wind, you just see it turn up, you know.
Oh, yeah,
and that
the
whole
lake's a
area
mess.
just-
The lake's a mess as a general rule. Of all the boats out there, it
Yeah,
gets
but
really muddy.
You
Just
can see
out
a brown line about 100 yards out,
Yeah.
you know, that
It
just.
wasn't like that before, is the
No.
big thing, yeah. And then we have more dust, and just
Yeah.
because the road has got the mud that's there.
Yeah, it falls off the truck too, and then.
You never create or solve a problem without creating another. I appreciate your
I
input,
understand.
and
I'm
I
just wanting
definitely,
you to
I've
know
seen
what's
it.
going
I've seen the
on.
turbidity that you're talking about. And
I have a question about the roads, though. In spite of Tennessee being a backward state, they had a law that if construction debris was left on roads, they were responsible for removing the mud off the roads, because they didn't want that mud getting into in the lake systems and the river systems. Do we have that kind of a law here in Indiana where they clean up their mess? Because
Yes.
they leave
Put on the
a,
roads.
Yeah, they clean off the road.
do they?
Yeah. we'll
Clean off the
check it out.
roads?
They're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Supposed to.
They have in the past, I don't know if they have
Okay.
this
Yeah, I was
year.
gonna
But
say we're
Sue,
waiting this
they
year.
is us, let us not forget.
Yeah.
Well, I know, I get
It's
that, but, I mean, are they following up on it, is what I'm saying? Are the doc-
I know one morning I took the dog out for a walk before work and, you know, I'm dressed in work clothes and I'm trying to walk and I get to that area where across the road and it's like, I can't go any farther without wading in mud.
Right.
There's just no
That's
way.
right.
And,
That's my point.
because there's just a line of mud from the lake all the way to Kenny's property and so I just had to turn around and go home, or go home and change my shoes. And so it's, you know, when it's not raining, then it's not mud, but then you get dust when everybody drives across it, so.
I can step up the vigilance on them.
Sounds
I
like-
appreciate
One
it.
more thing, I'm sorry, but I just got another email from Salmon Harbor East Side. Who made the decision to move the maintenance line from the shoreline?
Doesn't
Management.
Okay, management made the decision.
I recommended it and Adam approved
Okay.
it.
Well, we'll probably have to do something because they're not gonna be, I mean, I don't think they're gonna be happy with the response that the manager's gonna give it on moving that maintenance line.
Adam, why don't we talk about that, and Mike, you can be a part of that if you want.
Thank you.
We can make it an agenda item possibly.
Okay,
okay.
appreciate it.
Okay, folks, we are at an hour and 45. We usually try to keep it less. If anybody, if everybody's finished, I'd like to.
I've got one thing for new business. I'd like to suggest that the management look at the Gabion area at the park. I was out there the other day and there's about an 8-foot vertical drop at that structure, and I'm concerned that we have a fall hazard and that we may not be in compliance. We may need to put some sort of a barrier there. If these guys could just take a look at it and maybe take a look at the regulations, because there's a Ann Reese Memorial bench is right there, and I can envision if somebody had a 2 or 3 year old, they could fall right over that. You don't see it when you're coming towards the lake, and then all of a sudden there's about an 8-foot drop. And I think it's probably out of compliance and something that maybe we should look at.
That'd be a good volunteering project. I think it'd be pretty cheap to put in a kind of a railing or fence right there.
Well, you guys can look at it and make a
Yeah.
determination, but I think,
Right in front
you know,
of
when
the
I
bench,
design
so-
projects, anything over 6 feet, we have to put a handrail in.
All right.
So I think we better look at that sooner rather than later. Then appreciate that.
Okay,
Next
that
meeting is the 21st of October. Maybe the leaves will be turning right here again, 6 o'clock. And with that, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Good night, thank you for coming.
Thanks for bringing that.
I think it may be the